Hi, this is Shelly Niehaus, podcast host of the Educated, Empowered, Inspired podcast. And in my episode of the Business Growth Architecture Show, I share how to really stop overcomplicating your marketing. Marketing can be simple, it can be fun. Marketing is freedom. And I'm going to share with you how to really create content that connects and invites and allows you to start creating conversations that'll really help you land those first 20 clients.
And hello, fabulous person. Beate Gillette here. I am the host of the Business Growth Architect Show, and I want to welcome you to today's episode where we discuss how to navigate strategy and spirituality to achieve time and financial freedom. Truly successful people have learned how to master both a clear intention and a strategy to execute that in a spiritual practice that will help them to stay in alignment and on purpose. Please enjoy the show and listen to what our guest today has to say about this very topic. Welcome back, everyone. Beate Gillette here with Shelly Niehaus from Shelly Niehaus Coaching. And today we're going to talk about slaying the myth of online marketing, how many clients you really need. Why are you always making this so unbelievably overcomplicated? What should you do to get your first 20 clients? And Shelly, I couldn't think of anybody better in the room than you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm super excited to just simplify this and make this easy, fun, and approachable for everyone.
That's what we really like to hear on this show. So tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and what problem do you solve for your clients?
So I am a business coach for service-based providers and entrepreneurs and small businesses. And I have spent 20 years in the service-based industry. And in that industry, I learned a lot of things the hard way. And so my goal now is to help other service providers really learn how to market their business in a way that is authentic to them, but also is effective. And that really starts with creating content that not only connects, but it converts. And so we really work on creating that content that's authentic, connects, and converts. And we do it in a very simple way. I don't think marketing needs to be hard. We don't need to make it all these different levels and funnels and structures. We can make it simple and really think about creating conversations that connect with the person that you can help and then show them how you can help them. So I really just help service-based providers market and sell their business and really attract that ideal client to help them monetize their passions.
I really like the simplicity of this. And one of the things that you and I had spoken about in a previous conversation is that you said that business owners have a tendency to make it really complicated. Where is this complication coming from? Are they themselves making this complicated? Are they listening to the wrong people? Is what the market is telling them the wrong thing? Where is this coming from?
Well, I think when you start out, everyone goes into business because they want to do whatever they want to do, whether it's practice law or do hair or be a photographer. Their passion is to be a technician in their business and to really do that. But then along the way, they realize I have to actually be able to get people in the door. I have to attract a client. And that for some people who do not have a business background is scary in itself. You say the word marketing and you get this deer in the headlights because they have seen and heard from other people all these complicated formulas and structures and psychology. I mean, people in the marketing space themselves, the gurus, and I'm putting that in quotes, have made it hard because they need you to buy into their products and services. Whereas I always say, let's start with what marketing is. What would you do in the online space that you would do in person? It starts with creating conversations. So if you're on social media, how are you creating the right conversations with just the people that you want to be talking to, that you want to help? And let's take it down and just start with that and see how we can start the conversations. And then where would they naturally lead the next step and the next step to lead that person that you want to work with into creating an informed buying decision. You want to let them make the decision because you only want to attract the people that are a good fit for you. So an informed buying decision could be no, that we're not a good fit and they don't want to continue to work with you or buy your products or services, but you're going to be attracting the right people that do feel in alignment with you and are going to want to do business with you and will be a great fit.
I have this thing very much like you where I look at a lot of this internet marketing stuff and I talk about this excessively, is that it is designed to make you fail and it is designed to keep you wanting more. Because if you would fix it and if you wouldn't need them anymore, you wouldn't have to buy their subscription. You wouldn't have to buy the next affiliate offer. You wouldn't have to have this one more thing to solve until you finally get there when the domino finally will tip over and everything magically falls into place. So, how do I get out of this mindset? So, I want to take the beehive through this methodical today. So let's say I'm in the state, I'm listening to Gary Vee. Gary Vee is telling me you need to have a team of 8 people that just blast out content. And Alex Hermosi says the same thing. I cannot do that. I don't have the team. I don't have the money, don't have the content. But I'm in this mindset now that I need to do something that I cannot even do. Where should I start to rail this convoluted brain of mine that's now somewhere out there? How do I get that back to reality?
So I think one of the things that we often do in our business is we compare our middle to someone else's end or wherever they are. And you have to, first of all, look at where you are in your journey. Are you in your first year of starting a business? Are you bootstrapping it and trying to get everything just together? That's a very different place than someone who's 3 years into their business, who's 5 years into their business. So I think you need to give yourself a lot of grace and, first of all, assess, where am I and what is my current bandwidth and what resources do I have? And then we have to look at those, I call them creative constraints, to allow us to start figuring out how we can be creative and work within those constraints. Now, with that, you also have to have the end in mind. Where do you want to go? Not everybody wants to have a 7 and 8 figure business and be burning the midnight oil. I mean, that's a model, but that's not for everyone. So what I always tell my clients, to build a business that allows you to build a life. So when you think about that, when you build a business, for me, building a business that allows me to build a life gives me freedom. I want freedom. And what does freedom look like for me? It looks like freedom of my time and freedom of my money and just to be and freedom of my relationships. And so with those filters in place, where do you want to go and where are you now? That's where you have to step back. And if you don't even have a VA, if you're doing it all on your own, just to start with, how can you start to just think about what you can do? What's your minimum viable option to start the needle moving forward? If it's creating content 3 times a week on each of the social media platforms, and now you're creating 3 posts a week versus what Gary Vee is saying, content.
Yeah.
I'd rather you show up and be consistent and focusing than to show up, burn it for 6 weeks, burn yourself out, and then ghost your audience for 6 months because you don't have the bandwidth. So your bandwidth and your resources are where you have to start. And then you have to just figure out your minimum viable option. Momentum is messy. Where can you just start creating that? And progress over perfection. Where can you make progress this week and not have to be looking at to the right or the left at other people's businesses, aiming for that perfection, because you're not there yet.
There's so much good stuff in what you just said. So let me just sort of recap that. I like the idea that you first empty your brain and just say, that's them. That's what I'm seeing is the result of 10, 15 years of hard work, millions of dollars in ads and other things and teams to get to this particular point. But do I even want to be there? I do not desire a life like Gary Vee or Alex Hormozi or even a Russell Brunson or a Tony Robbins. I have a criteria that is family, friends, enjoyment of life. At the end of our life on the tombstone, what is it going to say? Here's a woman who really liked to work very hard. Kudos to her until it killed her. Says nobody ever, and it's not desirable. It says as a woman, a mother, a wife, a partner, a friend. So we forget that this race sidetracks us. So now I have a clear mindset. Then I'm going to sit down and I'm going to say, what do I do that I normally do that brings people to me? So let's say I do really good in person, which is why I do podcasts. People need to hear me speak. I do better in speaking than in writing. I find I like to write, but it's a lot more difficult for me than speaking. Even though that sometimes when I read what I just said and I read the transcript, I'm like, does this even make sense? But people seem to understand what I'm saying. So, so let's say that I now have this honesty to say to myself, when I show up in the world with either in writing or with my content or my images or my videos or my spoken word, that's how I get traction. Now, how do I now create the content you were talking about? What type of content does work?
So I think back to, let's talk about how we would do this in the real world. In the real world, we would want to connect with people first. We've got
Hmm.
to connect, and you're building that connection. So create content that connects. I call them first date questions. What kind of things would you take if you're taking someone on a first date? What kind of things would you share? Because if they don't like you, they're not going to want to do business with you. So you've got to connect with them first.
So no showing up on the first date naked.
That's right. And we don't want to ask them to marry us on the first date. I think sometimes when we get into this online space, we forget our normal manners and human interactions. What would you do if you were hanging out with a friend for a first time, or if you were hanging out with your neighbor? Like, just talk and be casual and let them get to know you. You've got to connect. But then you've got to position yourself. They're obviously there because they want to learn more about you and the problems that you solve and how you can help them. So talk into the pain points. I connect with them on the pain points that you solve and really hit them where they're feeling it, because you want them to be like, oh yes, she gets me, or he gets me. And he like listening to me talk to my partner last night in the kitchen. You want to get in their head and you want to let them know, I get you, I understand you. And that's through putting out content that positions you and just allows you to become the expert, the go-to expert in whatever problem it is you solve. And the
Yeah.
last one is inviting. No, we want to invite them. Like, we don't want to hang out on social media forever. Like, we wouldn't want to hang out in a restaurant. We don't want to hang out on that first date spot. So where can you take them to the next spot? What's the next logical step in the relationship? Whether it's, getting on an email list, connecting with the DMs, but where's the next thing? Invite them into the journey.
I love this so much. We covered one thing. Don't do things that you cannot do, and get real. We talk about in the show about the first 20 clients, right? Because you don't need 100, you don't need 1,000. If you had 1,000 clients right now, you probably couldn't even serve them. If you had 20 clients next week and they all came at the same time, you probably had a completely different issue. You needed to call me or Shelly to help you with all the workflows and the processes to figure out how to solve working with 20 clients all at once. So let's just focus on 20 clients right now. Now, you say, I now need to go and look at myself, how I show up and what resonates in how I show up with other people, and have a conversation about something that is meaningful. Do I ask people permission to approach them? Do you have any tricks that we can share on this is a really great way to open a conversation? Maybe you can give them a tip or two.
Well, I think first of all, it's connecting with them on those pain points. If you have the 12 problems that you solve, when you're out there on social media or creating YouTube videos, and you're creating that content that actually connects with them, and you have a hook and you may be speaking into that a limiting belief, and then you're replacing it with an empowering belief, they're naturally going to A, understand why they should care, and B, want to know more, because you have shown them that you can help them with whatever problem it is that you solve. So you're leading with that value, that reciprocity out there, when I call the high level, the awareness, the social media. But
Mhm.
that's not where the sale happens. That's not where the next step happens. You got it. Doing business on social media is like doing it in a restaurant. It's loud, it's noisy. The restaurant could be closed down at any time. You never know who's going to be stopping by your table. You don't have control of the lights, the menu. There's just a lot there. But when you naturally lead with some type of a lead magnet, freebie, opt-in, something that says, I have something of value. Let's take this relationship back to what we would do in real life, away from this noisy environment and into a more one-to-one communication with an email list, and start connecting with them in a way they actually care about topics they care about, away from these crazy algorithms of social media. Now you can control the tone, you can control the pace, you can control the volume. Like, you're in control, and you can start to show up in a way that is authentic to you and connects with them. And that's like taking that relationship to the next level, which is still what I think you should do before you ever start trying to say, buy my stuff, because that's the next level before they're going to get into that relationship, before you ask them to marry you.
So powerful. So I'm hearing you say just drop the act.
Yes.
Just drop the act of this internet persona, this I got it so together, and just share what actually matters to you and what you're encountering. The idea that a lot of what I see in internet marketing is an exaggeration of almost like a performance. That's kind of like where I'm arriving at in this conversation with you, Shelly. And you're telling me, just stop it. That's crazy making. Focus on the things that really matter to me. Now, what would you say to somebody who says, yeah, but I'm a service provider, maybe a business coach, consultant like you and me. I do many different things. Where do I start? How do I know what matters to my clients? What are the most meaningful conversations? Can we help them identify how to narrow this down? Because if that first conversation hits, your first 20 clients are closer than you think.
I agree. So the first thing, and I see this so often in my own coaching clients, is we are so close to our products. We're so close to our services that we have our expert hat on. And we are coming at it from the expert. We are coming at it and we want to solve all the problems and we want to solve them yesterday. And like, we're passionate. But the person who is just coming into our world isn't ready for that. They are, if your product goes from 1 to 100, you need to take them to 1 to 0 or 0 to 1 or 0 to 2. You need to take them just on that first step. So I say, think about the questions you get asked most often. What if you could just sit down and think of the 10 to 12 questions that your clients ask you all the time when they first start working with you? That's a first start. Like, get those 12 pain points that you really help them solve and start with that. And then the next thing is go talk to them. Go talk to them. I always say, just do a Zoom call, do an interview, ask them a few questions. Say, hey, you know what? You've been one of my best clients. I would love to get some feedback on how I can help other people. Record it. Just record the call and use their languaging to help you in your marketing. Because that's marketing gold right there, because they're telling you what kinds of questions they had and what their life was like before they came to you. And you can use that in your marketing to really help connect with new clients by using the research that you've done with your other clients.
So now what you just said is stop trying to push what you think they need, but listen to them, what they're saying, and then reformulate what you're offering to that one problem that they can even identify with at this moment.
I think we as service providers and coaches, we think we know what they want, but if you listen, they will tell you. And that's what 90% of the world isn't doing. They're not taking the time to stop and listen to, what do my clients actually want? What kind of products or services they need, not what do I think they need.
Myself included. I think this is the problem of the expert in general. And I like that we're talking about this in the show, because that pushes these 20 clients further out. Because then the client will say something like this: there's something here, but I'm not sure. Because they know you know how to help them, but they haven't heard it. And so they keep going back to, well, I have to think about it. And then they push out the sale because you have not been able to really narrow it down to what they're doing. I mean, here at Growth Architecture, we do this with the signature growth system, where we then slice and dice the entire transformation journey into pieces. So how do you help your clients when somebody says, do you have a diagnosis of some sort? Do you have a strategy session? Like, how do you identify where they are at and have them tell you that, so you know what the product is you need to offer them?
Well, I think it starts with a strategy session or a discovery call, and you've got to get into their business. What is their current, revenue looking like? What is it, that's working for them? What's not working for them? And 9 times out of 10, the people that come to me have jumped over that first step of really getting clear on their offer, their audience, and their message. And because we all want to chase those shiny objects, they jump straight into jumping on social media and creating content. And they're frustrated because they're throwing spaghetti at the wall. They're pushing more and more content. But in reality, they haven't done the work to make sure that their message is resonating, that they have the right offer out there. Back to, are they actually putting what their clients want out there? Do they actually have their audience defined? And once we kind of step back and we start working through that, all of a sudden these light bulbs go off right and left. They're like, oh, I never thought of it this way. Oh yeah, that's great. And then once you get those core foundations that a lot of people nowadays want to skip over because it seems traditional, but at the end of the day, it still has to be done. That's when you go jump on social media and you jump into Canva and you get the graphics and you create all the fun next levels, but you've got to do the basics first. So we always kind of figure out where they are.
Mhm.
And then I back up and ask them, well, are you clear on this? Are you clear on that? And 9 times out of 10, I feel like if they have done it, it's been a long time and they need to revisit it, or else they've never done some of that initial work in the first place.
So simple, but that was our promise for this particular show. So I want to switch gears now a little bit, Shelly, and talk about the spiritual part of the show. How does spirituality comes into what you do and how you help your clients and how you show up?
Well, I think first of all, with spirituality, you really have to, and I think back to us talking about the internet marketing space, when you don't have confidence in yourself and you don't have your own clarity, you start looking to others for that confidence and clarity. And that's when you start chasing all the shiny objects because you think this solution's gonna, bring me the answer. And you start looking outside of yourself for the answers. And what I have found through spirituality is you've really got to know your why. You've got to know the purpose that's bigger than yourself. And you've got to know what your calling is for this specific season of life. And you've got to get quiet. You've got to journal, whatever it is that allows you to really connect with your core first and your knowing. I always say to know, and your knower. And once you know that, then you can go out into the world and start showing up. But if you're not really secure on how you are, your clarity, your confidence through your own inner spiritual work and your own guidance, then it's really hard to go out and serve others because you don't have that confidence and clarity and you're starting to look for it through other mechanisms.
I like that. Very simple. Again, do you think that people get disconnected because they've been told that there's business and business is business and your personal life is your personal life? Or are you seeing that these roles are now really changing and merging more and more?
I think a lot of people are really starting to live that intersection of faith and business
Mhm.
because I was a child of the 90s and it was the culture, everything was separate. And I feel like we lived that your spirituality and your business, they were siloed. And we have learned that we are complex beings. Our inner self drives the way we show up in the world, and we can't compartmentalize that. And I deal with a lot of, especially women, who have tried that way. And the old way of working is no longer, or the old way of doing things is no longer working. And now they're like, I've got to figure this out. And a lot of the people that I actually work with are looking for that element of life coaching, spirituality combined with business because they realize that how they show up in themselves and your spirituality, your faith affects the who you are, your ideas, your beliefs, and it affects how you show up and how you serve others, and you really can't compartmentalize them.
I couldn't agree with you more. One of the reasons we added spirituality to this show was that I had a spiritual journey and in this journey I was thinking about what really mattered to me, and when I connected to one source, in I felt what love feels like when you feel it in your heart, and I saw my daughter and my grandchild being born, and I felt these overwhelming emotions of love that put me into tears. And it's not that I didn't feel that before, but I felt it on a level that I'd never felt it before. And then when you go into the spiritual aspects of mindset or faith or belief, it is an energetic vibration of belonging to this source, on whether that's religion, faith, Jesus, God, whatever you want to call it, whatever you're comfortable with. But I, like you, see that people are refusing to make it about one thing over here and then somehow have to shed that code and then do something else over there. And I never understood when I grew up, that was completely frowned upon. I mean, church was church and that was that. And you just did not talk about it. And it would be completely inappropriate. So you said that for you, what you see in your work is that the spirituality really shows up in how people show up for themselves, is what I'm hearing in their work. So for somebody who now goes, I'm not getting the results, I'm not having these first 20 clients, can we give them some idea on how do we allow this spirituality to emerge?
And again, I think it depends on how you get connected with your inner self, with your faith. I think you've got to carve out the time to find that first. And it was actually through becoming a business owner that I really started my own personal development journey. And that's what actually got me curious and got me into journaling and really my faith because I realized that I couldn't have a weak side of one and a strong side of the other. They both had to be equally strong to be show up as my whole self. So I think you have to get in and figure out who you are, like who you are inside and what your why is and what why you're here, what you feel your calling is in the season of life, where you feel the favor is upon you, like what your gifts are and how it can be bigger to the world. And then once you start to see that and you start to really get your inner compass, as I say, in alignment, that's when you can start to go out and show up for your clients, because how you show up internally with your faith and your spirituality really does affect everything. And even if you're not openly talking about it in your business, it affects how you're going to serve your clients and show up, and the doors that are going to open for you and the opportunities that are going to come into your world. So you really have to get clear on what you feel is important to you, what your values are and your vision and your passion. And that's when you go out from there.
I could not agree with you more. You put this so absolutely beautiful. Meet yourself where you are at in your spiritual development. And it doesn't mean that you have to be holier than anyone else. It just means that there is a connection to the source or to an energy or to a belief system that is greater than you. Because a lot of people that we work with are looking for purpose, and you cannot help people to find their purpose unless you are in purpose. I mean, that's what I'm hearing you say here.
And give yourself grace to have that connection be in a different way. I mean, I was raised that your connection has to look very specifically, and like different people connect in different ways, and just give yourself the creativity to go out and explore how you can connect and feel in alignment. And it might surprise you what shows up.
I love that very much. Shelly, for somebody who's now listened to this and says, I must find out more about her, where do we send them? What do you have?
You can find me at the Educated, Empowered, Inspired podcast and shellyniehaus.com. That has all of the resources and everything you would need to know.
Wonderful. Well, you've been an amazing guest. So everybody, for your first 20 clients, you heard it here, make sure you got your inner core aligned to where you get your energy from, your spiritual connection. Get clear about what it is that you want. Stop all the over complications of internet marketing and have conversations with people where they are at about things that matter to them, and then create a product that solves that very problem. How difficult was that? You heard it all here on the Business Growth Architect Show with Shelly Niehaus. Shelly, thank you so much for being here. It was a pleasure to have you on the show.
Oh, I enjoyed it. Thank you again.
And that is it for us for today. So if you know someone who has unnecessarily overcomplicated their business, please share this episode with them. As always, we are so incredibly grateful that you've been listening or watching this show. And until next time, and goodbye. So appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for listening to the entire episode. Please subscribe to the podcast, give us a 5-star review, a comment, and share this episode with one more person so that you can help us help more people. Thank you again. Until next time. Goodbye.